Very clear. ICE must get out of Minnesota now. ICE must get out of Maine now.
In a better era of American politics, we used to say things like, we all want what is best for the country. We just have different ideas about how to get there. When you hear statements like the ones that I just rattled off, it seems harder and harder to believe that right now.
You just heard a sitting U.S. Senator demand that ICE be kicked out of American states like they're some foreign invading army. Bernie Sanders stood there calling law enforcement terrorists, comparing ICE to Nazis, and acting like enforcing the law is somehow un-American. And then Senator Eric Schmidt stepped in and absolutely lit that nonsense on fire with facts, logic, and the Constitution. This clip is a perfect snapshot of how unhinged the modern Democrat Party has become. If you're tired of the lies, hit like, subscribe, and stay to the end. Let's watch the full clip before I give you the full breakdown.
And must never be about federal agents shooting American citizens down in cold blood, breaking down doors to arrest people, or sending 5-year-olds to detention centers, all in clear violation of our Constitution. That is what takes place in dictatorships, in authoritarian societies, where there is not a rule of law. It does not and it must not be allowed to take place in the United States or any democracy on earth. So let me be very clear. ICE must get out of Minnesota now. ICE must get out of Maine now. ICE must stop terrorizing the American people.
The senator from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, we hear a lot of talk from the other side about democracy. Well, if democracy means anything at all, it means that this administration must be allowed to carry out the agenda the American people voted for. Enforcing our immigration laws, securing the border, and deporting immigrants who are here illegally. This is not a new concept, by the way. Democrat presidents for the last 20 years have done this. But the other side never had any intention of letting this happen. President Trump moved forward with his agenda. They were never going to let us enforce our immigration laws against those who had broken them. Why is that? Well, because mass migration is not just one policy preference among many for today's Democrat Party. It is the policy priority, the fundamental organizing principle of their entire agenda. It is the foundation of their platform and the final end of their worldview. Not one single Democrat has called on leftists in the streets to stop impeding law enforcement with their cars or to stop physically attacking law enforcement. Not a single one. They have zero interest in lowering the temperature. At this point, it's so obvious it almost feels silly to say. In Minnesota and here in D.C., Democrats are actively and intentionally adding fuel to the fire. The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, has claimed his city is invaded, under siege, occupied. The lieutenant governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan, declared that our neighbors are being disappeared. It's just called kidnapping, and publicly called upon Americans to put your body on the line and not go silently into the night. The governor, Tim Walz, compared the ICE presence in Minnesota to a Nazi occupation and likened residents of Minneapolis to Anne Frank. On Monday, Walz published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal declaring that the Trump administration's assault on Minnesota is a campaign of organized brutality against the people of our state. Just last week, he stood behind the metal gates of the governor's mansion with a bullhorn and told the crowd of protesters outside to go and cause trouble. These aren't unique examples. They are par for the course. Over the last month, we've heard similar things from just about every powerful Democrat in this country. I don't know what's in each and every one of their hearts. I don't know that. I don't know if they really believe that we're at war or that ICE is the Gestapo, or that Minneapolis is under Nazi occupation. But whether or not they believe it, many of the people who hear them and listening to them do. And now, many of those people are taking these ideas to their final logical conclusion. And that's exactly what the people in power on the left actually want. They want the confrontations. They want the chaos. They want their conscious political strategy. That's what this is. Their conscious political strategy. They have decided that leaning in and ratcheting this up as far as it can go serves their political and ideological interests. So they're all in. And by the way, might I just point out, they're about ready to shut the government down again. They shut it down the first time because they wanted health care for illegal immigrants. Now they're willing to shut the government down, including FEMA funding and TSA funding, because they want to stop deportations of illegal immigrants. It is the single organizing principle of their party right now. Think about that for a moment. Really sit with this. Think about what it says about the kinds of people we're dealing with at this point. In a better era of American politics, we used to say things like, we all want what is best for the country. We just have different ideas about how to get there. When you hear statements like the ones that I just rattled off, it seems harder and harder to believe that right now.
All right, now that you've seen it all, let's stop pretending there's any moral equivalence here. Bernie Sanders didn't just exaggerate, he flat out lied. ICE is not shooting citizens in cold blood. ICE is not kidnapping Americans. ICE is enforcing laws passed by Congress, signed by presidents, and demanded by voters. Calling that dictatorship isn't activism, it's reckless propaganda. And Bernie knows exactly what he's doing. He's trying to turn law enforcement into villains so the left can justify open borders without saying the quiet part out loud. Eric Schmidt, on the other hand, came in calm, precise, and devastating. He reminded everyone what democracy actually means. When the American people vote for border enforcement, the government is supposed to enforce the border. That's not authoritarianism. That's the system working. The left loves democracy right up until voters choose something they don't like. Then suddenly it's resistance, protests, obstruction, and chaos. And Schmidt nailed the real truth that Democrats don't want discussed. Mass migration isn't a side issue for them. It's the core of their entire agenda. It's why they excuse attacks on ICE, why they tolerate mobs blocking law enforcement, and why not a single Democrat will tell their base to stand down. Chaos isn't a bug for them, it's the strategy. They want confrontation because it helps them politically. The most disgusting part was the Nazi rhetoric coming out of Minnesota Democrats. Comparing ICE to the Gestapo and illegal immigrants to and Frank is not only historically ignorant, it's morally obscene. It cheapens real atrocities and insults every legal immigrant who followed the rules to become an American. Schmidt didn't dance around that. He called it out for exactly what it is. Dangerous, inflammatory nonsense designed to radicalize people. And then came the MIC drop. Democrats are willing to shut down the government, cut FEMA funding, cripple TSA, jeopardize public safety, all to stop deportations of people who broke the law. That tells you everything you need to know about their priorities. Not citizens. Not security. Not order. Power. Eric Schmidt didn't just win this exchange. He exposed the entire playbook. One side believes in law, borders, and accountability. The other thrives on fear, distortion, and manufactured outrage. That contrast couldn't be clearer, and that's exactly why Democrats hate moments like this.